I want to take you all back. You can imagine what I would have looked when I was 13 years old. I actually have a picture of it. I didn't want to show it because it'll be a big distraction and we may be talking about something else. So I decided not to use that as a prop. But just as I was thinking through what to share as an experience for me, I reflected back on a lot of things, a lot of success that has happened in my life, back to the day I discovered the power of showing up. It's all about on time and the right way. So when I was 13, I was a strong probable for playing for my state, Karnataka, back in India, playing cricket. I had actually represented my state in the under 13 team, and I was actually on the cohort for the under 16 team. Because of the year I was born in 76, I ended up being the youngest player on that cohort. And many of you may know, it's very competitive to play at a state level. I was actually doing very well in my club, but being on the under 16 cohort as an younger player, it meant I was actually benched quite a bit, right? So that means I would show up, I would not be playing the game. But unlike the distractions that kids have today with iPad and phone, we didn't have any such thing. Most of us who show up and not being able to play, we would wander off, right? So we would start reading. I remember Nancy Drew books and Famous Five books, and we would actually pick up some small games on the side. But the key point is we used to drift away so much that we were not part of our team, right? Our team is actually playing in the field and we are not cheering for the team. We are not supporting any players who got out and came back to the pavilion, what have you, right? We are just about doing our own things. And somebody would shout and say, hey, you need to fill the water bottles with water, or you need to come and clean kit. And over time, you would just get started frustrating, right? You show up every day not to play, but you're there in the sun every day just doing this work. So what happens is, for me and to many of the players that I played with, is that we would actually, the day of the game, we would actually show up very late to the game, knowing that we are not going to play. Many of us would show up in our color dress, because many of wearing uniforms is a big thing in India. And our coach will always look for, hey, are you in your whites and everything, right? So slowly you will show up wearing color dress, to the extent that I would just wear a slipper and go to the ground, right? So obviously it's the early teenagers where you have a lot of conflict with your parents. And my dad has been observing this for some time. And one day he basically said that if you don't show up the right way, the way how your coach and your team expects, I'm not going to drop you, right? And I'm not going to give you the money for whatever, things like that. So obviously I'm so dependent on him for this that I had to actually show up early, show up in the right uniform, practice and warm up with the team, irrespective of whether I get to play or not. But as they say, luck would have it. One day I showed up like this for a game day, already knowing I won't play. But I was there early. I was helping the team. I was warming up. I was throwing balls and doing everything. And luck would have it that one of the players didn't show up on time. And there is a rule that before you toss for the game, each team have to share the player roster and you can't change it unless somebody is severely hurt. So I got a chance to play on that day just because I showed up and I was all ready, and the coach saw that there's that eagerness and he put me, I'm an opening batsman. Even till today, that probably is one of my best games, even though I've gone on to score many things. That 42 runs that I hit there changed everything for me, and I got on to the state team. So this is just connecting back to say, like earlier, Uma said about different ladders. And one of the reasons why I thought this is important is that I learned a very good lesson that when you show up the right way, things can actually change for you. And what I really mean by showing up the right way is just not being there on time. It's like being prepared, right? And being ready to contribute, irrespective of what you get back in return, right? It is about showing up the right attitude, showing up with the right energy, and showing up with the right focus. And connecting back this to a lot of career successes I've had is that there is actually an undertone for this principle everywhere. And actually, since then, this is part of me. If you were to invite me for dinner or lunch to your home, the chances are I'm the first one to show up, right? And you better have your house clean before I show up, right? So usually that's how I have been. And this has helped me in my career across IBM, HP, Microsoft, Amazon, now at PNNL, is being prepared to have a conversation, meet with someone, being part of a project team actually helped me tremendously build relationship and partnership, right? So I attribute almost all of my career success to the relationships that I've built, the network I've built. And that has come from actually establishing a personal relationship with every single individual that I have worked with, right? And this relationship then has actually helped me climb up the ladder to actually supporting and working on a lot of strategic projects that cuts across the company, right? And in organizations like Amazon or Microsoft, it's usually very difficult to work with other product teams because everybody has their own priorities, everybody has their own thing. But you show up asking them to do some work on your behalf, it really requires you to actually be prepared to have the right conversation, be prepared with all the data and facts so that you can negotiate, you can give and take and all those things, right? So that has helped. And lastly, that has created a lot of opportunities for me to drive very strong strategic initiatives. And this is even more true for me as I reflect back on my current role at PNNL. I left private institutions and I now work for one of the US national labs, Pacific Northwest National Lab. And the kind of individuals that I have to work with is very different from the last 20 years I've worked with. I'm dealing with the best physicists of the world, the best chemists and the best biologists who don't know anything much about cloud computing or what have you, right? They have their own way of doing certain work. And I show up from this Microsoft, Amazon experience with knowing a lot of technology, how this technology can be used in some research context. There is a big a gap in how work gets done at a national lab level and how work gets done in companies like Amazon, where every 2 months, every month there is a release, but the lab doesn't work that way. Some of these research projects are decades long research projects. It's like finding the next new material for creating a long lasting batteries, right? These are things that don't happen in 2 months or 3 months, but how do you actually build relationship with them and influence them in making right decisions in terms of choosing the right technology partner, the technology and what have you, right? So this idea about showing up right and showing up on time is a key value for me, which as my dad channeled for me, I try to channel it to my kids with little to no success, but I'll keep at it because at 13, I didn't recognize the value of it and recognizing the value of it much later in my 40s. So hopefully repeating this with my kids helps. My coach also used to say, and I think a lot of people can agree that there's tons of lessons you can learn from sports. And my coach always used to say, what you give the game gives you back, right? And I think that statement is true to anything that you do, right? I bring grocery bags home and there's tons of groceries and I ask my kid to pick it up. He sulks and he complains and I say, don't do it. Unless you're doing it willingly, even just picking up the bag from the garage and putting it in the kitchen, if you're not doing it willingly, don't do it, right? So give your best without expecting any return and things give back to you, right? And earlier said that I used the word like as luck would have it, I got an opportunity to play today. And there is a quote from Seneca, and I think many of you have heard others repeat this also in some interviews. They say, luck is nothing but when preparation meets opportunity, right? So I reflect back on that day is that the only reason I got to play is that I showed up early. I was already warmed up. My muscles were loose. I'm ready to play. I showed up as a team member. And I think that quote is very good, is that we just say that, hey, you are just lucky. And what that really means is that person has worked towards preparing themselves for when the right opportunity just showed up and they were ready to act on it. Right. So that's my story for today. So thank you.